Hi guys, this is Bob Robinson of the Robinson Twins. On April 12th, 2019, this is the route I took to get to Glen Camp from the Five Brooks Trailhead in Point Reyes National Seashore. This is my campsite number 2 at Glen Camp in Point Reyes National Seashore. I did an overnight bike packing trip here during the spring break of 2019. And this is what Glen Camp looks like. It's one of 4 backcountry campgrounds in Point Reyes National Seashore, 40 miles north of San Francisco approximately. And this one, as you can see, is in a nice little glen, hence the name. This is the service road that leads to the Glen Camp, which can also serve as a trail for hikers and mountain bikers. And this is campsite number 1. At Glen Camp. It's kind of off by itself, and this is the rest of the camp. One of the amenities here, of course, is vault toilets.
That's where I stayed.
And it also has garbage service. They pick up both garbage and recycling out of the camps. The Park Service also provides food lockers at each campsite because you need to store your food to keep it away from camp robbers like raccoons, which are really prevalent in this park. While I was there the morning of April 13th, one of the Park Service vehicles did come out to service Glen Camp. Because most of Point Reyes backcountry is wilderness area, mountain bikes are generally not allowed on the trails at Point Reyes, but they make an exception for those service roads that go to the different campgrounds in the backcountry. So where the service vehicles could go, the mountain bikes can go too.
More or less.
Glen Camp site number 2, where I stayed, had a nice big oak hanging over it to provide some shade, and a fence that marked where a steep drop-off dropped into a deep valley. My goal for this morning was to bike to Wildcat Campground. After a nice breakfast, I packed up my bike and started the long grind out of Glen Camp. Starting out, it's all pretty much uphill for the first half mile or more. After reaching the high point of the Glen Trail, I had a nice downhill stretch to the junction with the Stewart Trail. Back to the left was the way to the Five Brooks Trailhead, but to the right and more or less straight ahead was the way to Wildcat Campground. After a while on the downhill stretch toward Wildcat Campground, the terrain opened up so I could look toward the ocean and see that there is still fog overhead.
Here comes the Coast Trail.
And then I came upon the junction with the Coast Trail. Coast Trail is the one trail in Point Reyes that, as the name implies, covers the coast from the north end to the south. After the junction with the Coast Trail, the Stewart Trail continued on down toward Wildcat Camp, where I came upon this overlook. So I could see the whole camp and see that it was covered with wild mustard. And also see the last few curvy stretches of trail. After I got to Wildcat Camp, I could see that it was like each path that led to a campsite, you had to go through like a mini jungle of wild mustard. It was blooming all over the place. And also, one of the most common bird songs you'll hear in the Point Reyes campgrounds is the song of the white-crowned sparrow. And this is what the little fellas look like. And after I arrived at Wildcat, a couple of other bikepackers came zooming in after me. And from Wildcat Camp, it was time for me to head down to the beach and go hike to the real highlight of this trip, Alamere Falls. But first I had to cross a creek where I soon discovered something rather surprising.
This little bridge. Oh my gosh. How the heck did a big tire like that get here? Sheesh.
While I was hiking along the beach, I could see surf scoters playing in the surf. Surf scoters are called that because they like to play in the surf and they search for mollusks while they're floating out on the waves, riding the swells.
Looks like a recent collapse of rock on these coastal bluffs. This looks like a recent rock fall to me. Okay, I can make out Alamir Falls through the mist. It looks like it's got really good flow to it. There's another stream crossing. And here's the cascade that produced that stream. A spring just emerging from the rock here on the coastal bluffs. And then it just kind of soaks in. Approaching Alamir Falls. Just had to get around that point there that was the waves are going up to and beyond a little. But the tide's supposed to be going out, so that's good. There's all kinds of people here up there on the top of the bluff, all around here, around the falls. Quite the crowd.
I was visiting Alamir Falls during spring break for a lot of people, and it turned out there were a lot of people there. Alamir Falls is listed as being about 39 feet tall. That's not one of the biggest ones in California, but it is certainly one of the most beautiful. Alamir Falls is about a 1-mile hike south on Wildcat Beach. There is an unofficial scrambling type path to the top of the falls. I'm sure the Park Service doesn't encourage it, but here's what it looks like from the creek that leads up to the brink. Alamir Creek is a pretty interesting watercourse because it has so many cascades and waterfalls before it finally reaches the ultimate brink at Alamir Falls itself. It was kind of hard for me to tear myself away from the brink of Alamir Falls, but I finally took one last look and then scrambled down to the base. It was kind of hard for me to tear myself away from the view of Alamir Falls from the base, too, from the sandy beach. But eventually, I turned and headed back to Wildcat Camp and my bike to head out. Way to Wildcat Campground from Wildcat Beach. This image shows the route I took to get back to the trailhead.
Okay, leaving Wildcat. Biking past Fir Top, the high point of the trail.
Fir Top is the highest point along the route at 1,324 feet elevation. It's named for all the Douglas fir trees that make up a large part of the forests in Point Reyes.
Stewart Trail. 2.7 to Wildcat, okay.
From here, it was a lot of downhill back to the trailhead.
So here's another trail junction on my way out to Five Brooks Trailhead. It says it's a mile away. We're on the Stewart Trail. And the bikes aren't allowed down this trail, but that's the Green Picker Trail. Got a mile to go that way, back to the car. Five Brooks Trail. Head point 2.
Thanks for watching this Robinson Twins natural adventure. Now be sure to like and subscribe.